raise your hand if you are a business analyst or some kind of the related field. I don't know, maybe we have like POs or something. Okay, some of it. So as I can see from since the morning session, it seems like we talk quite the related topics. Usually, but it's different perspective, right? We have a develop side, also Joel just talked about like PO, KPI, and which is like nearly the develop side. So for us, I will completely say we are on business side. So, but developer not.
Can we introduce ourselves now?
Yeah, we are ready. Okay, I'm just by time. So, okay, we can actually start. Oh, why is so soon? Okay, so my name is Or. I'm a business analyst from ThoughtWorks Thailand office, and okay, it's slideshow. Yeah, it is not present. Okay, I already introduced myself.
Hi, I'm Steven, or Setai Wen. I'm a business analyst at ThoughtWorks in Singapore.
Yep. So as you know, today we are going to talk about the rescue the project by goal and measurement. Here's our agenda. We are going to go through the intro about the experience, what went wrong, and the goals measurement, and also the prioritization and LBT, which is also called the value tree. And the last one is what could be done better to rescue our project. So I'm going to start with the intro first, which is one of the story of the project that I was experienced. Next slide. Okay. Yeah, I think clicker. I forgot clicker. It doesn't really work. Can the staff help for that? Okay. So here is a story of mine that we are having the team, one of the team in the consultant big company in Thailand. So at the first point, we have a big discussion and big workshop with the stakeholder and PO. So we found that like here's the outcome, the beautiful roadmap with all the information filled inside. We and team and the stakeholder and PO have the same sharing understanding that okay, what are we going to achieve? We work so hard through the Agile ceremony that stand up estimation. We also improve everything in the stand up in the Agile ceremony. We try to achieve less bug, achieve more points, and also even we have the challenge, I can guarantee that we achieve it quite well and we are on track. So after many iterations pass by, we deliver one MVP that the users love it. Users quite love it, and we are all happy. Yeah, yay! We deliver something that user love. But surprisingly, that sponsor came up and they say like, you know, actually this project is not success. The outcome that we hope that you are going to provide to us is not happen. Why? User love it. The outcome is here. Why it failed? We tried to look back that what we went wrong. And here is something that we found. The first thing is inside the roadmap, the result in it is come from the hierarchy decision. PO have a decision. PO have the ability to make which one should come first, but it's too weak to compare with hierarchy decision. We call this situation as hippos or highest paid person opinion, and here's an effect. So after you publish something, the MVP is going to like wrong direction from what the sponsor need or which is the company's goal. Even we try to improve the estimation to achieve the estimation point, we try to improve our code quality or something, but the outcome from the MVP is completely wrong in the wrong direction. that means if you make it harder, make it better, make it faster, it's going to be worse and worse because it's going to completely wrong. And moreover, and another effect of the HIPPO decision is when we look back to our stakeholder and our team, even the PO, we found that the main goal for them not going to achieve, make the impact to align with company vision anymore. The result is like they try to finish all tasks that roadmap have been like public explicit. So that means because like the reason why they have that goal, because like they don't want to have the conflict with the hierarchy. They don't want to have the with everyone don't want to have the conflict with CEO, right? When CEO make the decision, hey, do this, you can, when you say no, what is actually what it might happen. So that's why like it's the direction not just only going misaligned with the vision, and long time goes by and we found that our team turns to something that we call code monkey. So they don't know the direction of the work anymore. They just want to achieve the feature. They starting ask the team that why are we here? If we going to make something better, why are we here? We are and we can find that the motivation is decreasing significantly. I think this problem usually happen like in the common project in the first place. So we have one framework that we hope that it might help you to trigger more ideas to help to rescue your project. Stephen will come to help to explain us.
Okay, so the clicker is not working, but we have replaced that with Mr. Bond. So thank you, Bond, for playing my clicker. So I'm going to talk a little bit about taking a step back actually first. So based on the real life example that Or had shared, taking a more theoretical angle, but also a case study driven approach to what are the things that all went wrong in that case study, and then a way forward based on that. So what am I doing wrong? This is the question from a CEO who, through some significant investment and time, had implemented Agile quite well. They had managed to reduce the path to reduction from years to days. They're able to deliver incrementally an MVP, and they're able to continue to enhance an MVP, but, and it's a very big but, that they're delivering the wrong portfolio of products. So despite all that investment, despite all that delivery agility, the capability to deliver, there was still fundamentally a poor linkage between strategy and delivery. Having a digital strategy on its own isn't really enough. Even if you are able to put together your Scrum teams, you're able to build a team that is able to adapt well to changes. If the delivery part is not aligned and there is a missing link to your portfolio of investment and the way you make decisions in your portfolio, then really you are still making bets. And it's not really a scientific approach to making those bets and trying to make a change. In this particular example, from this quote, the issue was kind of compounded with the fact that there were legacy systems in the picture. It also took a strain and basically very easily eats up the budget allocation that is performed on an annual basis. What results is that you are not investing. You do not have a portfolio or funds allocated to driving innovation within your organization. Being able to exploit future opportunities is something that is completely missed. The lesson here, I guess, is around the ability to have a digital organization or an agile delivery competency alone, even being able to scale agile is a little bit different. It's a subtle difference between that and having the right blend of investment in tactical versus strategic initiatives. it comes down to the way you define your goals and your vision around that. So in terms of what the difference is between agile delivery, which we've said is something that a lot of companies already know about. It's something that's already exists and in place at the moment, and there's a certain level of success around that. How do we add the strategic alignment component to make sure that it comes together more holistically? So there are two forms of transformation. There's business agility side, and then there's the strategic alignment that hopefully marry together in your overall strategy. Transforming your organization to be an innovative digital enterprise on its own sounds great, but when you only consider that in isolation and alone, you are still at risk of missing that alignment to a wider vision for your company. So we refer to that missing alignment as kind of the edge. In the next slide, you see that agile delivery is only one piece of the puzzle. In this entire ecosystem or this framework, you see that organizational agility encompasses a few other things, and I'll go through them one by one. So first one here is around the outcome-based strategy. So how do you define your vision for the organization so that you first protect yourself from misalignment between delivery and your strategy? The business strategy itself, obviously, you need to shape your problem. You need to be able to articulate that in a way that aligns to business benefits as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Portfolio management is what I kind of already alluded to. It's like, yes, you can define your vision, your goals, you can articulate which ones are the highest value, and you should prioritize your investments and your budget allocation based on those things that are adding the most value. And taking it a step further so that your investments are funded incrementally as well, rather than big bang. We're very much in a habit of old ways of doing annual budget processes, which is something we would like to change. Product architecture is I guess, the step before being able to deliver or execute on something. How do you define your MVP? How do you create vertical slices of work that your teams can absorb and deliver on? And then finally, after you've done your agile delivery, how do you measure that success? So there are two things I guess we'll focus on based on the topic of our talk today, which is around the goals as well as the measurement piece. So I guess over the last decade, and I've mentioned it already, a lot of the investment is around creating delivery capability, the ability to adapt, to move faster and to move at scale. But fundamentally, when we talk about transformation, we are asking three questions, and three questions not in isolation. First one and the third one, I guess, is probably what you can link to how you do your work today if you've adopted agile methodologies. So how do we work? And how do we adapt fast enough? The key point here that I want to highlight is the second one, is around how do we invest? Because that is crucial to making sure you properly link what your teams do on the ground and what your organization vision at the top is. Taking a further step back in terms of the problem that we face, and the three fundamental questions we've asked, especially in the digital age, is this link that is very easy to miss within an organization, makes it even harder as the opportunities in the digital age continue to grow. With the onset of those opportunities, organizations are not keeping up with their back office, their business side thinking, the framework in which we decide how to invest, how we do our budgeting is not keeping up with the digital age. It's moving much more quickly. And as a result, the gap in capabilities is also widening. And it's a problem we need to fix. Skip that one. But if you are interested in that slide, it's just talking about the average life expectancy of a company back in the third industrial revolution compared to now is 60 years versus now, which is 15 years. So if you want your company to exist longer than 15 years, you really need to think about this quite carefully. So coming back to the framework in terms of organizational responsiveness, we're effectively not trying to paint a doomsday, but there is an existential crisis for companies if you continue to not look holistically about how you transform your organization, how you make it responsive. It's very easy to see and kind of feel that there is definitely a world of opportunity out there, but without the right investment to continue to invest in your capabilities to keep up with that, we're going to continue to see the gaps increase. How do we bring new ways of doing business into your capability? There are three things here that we want to focus on in particular. So one is the outcome-based strategy, so defining your vision and your goals. The second one I wanted to talk about is around value-based prioritization. And this is to address the question of how do we invest, or how do we decide how much money to put where. Third one we will not focus on so much, but lightweight planning and governance is also crucial in this model. And in the middle there are three other things that are important, but we won't focus on so much today. So the first principle, and I guess the thing I want to highlight around that framework is that it's not a toolkit, it's not a tool set, it's more shifting the way we think about designing organizations that are agile, not just agile delivery teams. So there's a quote that I'll share, which is that an outcome-oriented way of defining your work will allow you to think differently. And by means of that, it will also give you different ways of delivering value. So there's definitely a mindset shift that is required in this exercise. It's probably easy to say, but it's probably one of the more difficult things for courageous executives to embrace, to shift this thinking when they talk about transformation. How do we learn to measure success differently to how we have for the last 30 to 50 years? Traditionally, and it's been alluded to throughout the morning, teams are rewarded for performance against metrics which don't necessarily relate to business outcomes. So you've delivered your project on time, it's on budget, and these things are helpful to guide teams, but in and of themselves, are they valuable to the customer? Does your end user or your customer really care whether you deliver on budget or on time? Usually the answer is. Therefore, this framework advocates for a shift in that thinking in terms of how we measure value. So primarily, we're talking about outcome-based or customer value to define your goals first. Secondary is the business benefit. So there's a shift there. Typically, we will say, I want to increase my market share, I want to increase profit, I want to increase revenue. They're what we call business benefits, but they're very intangible for an end customer. Once you've established a value-based approach to defining your outcomes, your goals, then you will necessarily have a much easier time aligning your teams to deliver something that is clearly linked to your organizational vision. Then you can use your performance targets to measure the team's success against those. And by doing that, you then have an opportunity in a more incremental fashion to invest incrementally, to measure incrementally, and also pivot based on what you should continue to invest in, potentially what you should stop investing, or whether you need to pivot and invest in something else entirely. So, thanks. So define your goals based on customer outcomes, not end solutions. So here's an example. An original goal that came out of a project was I need to sell more mortgages, more revenue, more profits. Sounds fair enough. This is what I call the business benefit. Means nothing to your customer. I don't need to sell more mortgages. I want you to put me in a home. I want to be able to borrow money to buy a house, to buy a home to live in. So the customer-centric way, or the outcome-based strategy to defining the goal, would be to reword it a little bit, but take the perspective of the customer. So enable more people to buy homes is your customer goal, as opposed to a business or original goal that we see there. Another example from a real project is I need 1 million new users this year. Does this matter to your customer? Unlikely. The customer goal is that they should feel that your application is friendly and easier to use than before. This is something that adds value to your user, to your customer, and it makes sense to them, and it's a much more tangible way for you to define your goals. So here's a basic template you can use. So it's probably the only tool in here. The rest is all more of a framework for your thinking. So when you're defining your goal, make sure it's an outcome-based approach to your thinking. Think about your owners. Think about specifically your customers. Measures of success, I'll talk a little bit about shortly. And challenges and opportunities, obviously, to round out the template for defining your goal. So I've talked about this a little bit. So when it comes to measurement now, what is the best way to define your measures of success? This is a scale. So at the core of this mindset shift is the external value-oriented approach to defining your goals. So are you creating customer value? And can I measure you on that? The secondary objective is to be able to define goals and measure them based on the business benefit. It's still important, but it's of secondary importance on this scale. And what most organizations still need to get used to is that the least important or the least useful way of defining measures of success are what we call activity-based measures. How many defects do you have? How many security flaws have you fixed? What is your velocity? What is your budget? And what is your time? They're all activity-based measures, and on this scale, I guess they're much less relevant in terms of the way we want to approach defining goals as well as measures of success. So here's you saw this example earlier. So you have your new goal of being able to enable more people to buy homes. The measurement is obviously the number of home purchases you have enabled in your market. Second example we saw, where we want users to feel that the application is more friendly and easier to use than before. Your measurement kind of falls into place much more easily. How long does it take your user to complete their registration process? They're all taking the perspective of the customer when looking at how you can actually measure the success that's there. The last piece, or the second piece in terms of the framework, if you still remember, is around having clarity in thought in terms of how you're going to approach defining your goals a bit differently from an outcome perspective, from a customer value perspective, having understood how you're going to make sure those measures of success are aligned to that, you've created a link. And then thirdly, how do you make sure that you can prioritize? The prioritization process is quite straightforward at this point. The most valuable customer value propositions you have are the ones that you should invest in first. And we already know how to incrementally do that. We know how to define MVPs. We just need to make sure that we're building the right product that aligns to that vision. So how does this kind of all come together? We like to call them lean value trees, or LVTs, or LTV. I think there's a typo there. So you've got your vision, you've got a new framework for thinking about, or shifting your thinking in terms of how you should properly define your goals in this model, or at least this framework, how those goals should fall into place based on that goal. Secondly, you've got measures of success that linked to your vision, and you've also then got a much more simple framework to work out how to do your investment allocation. Effectively, how do you do your portfolio management in the organization is driven from this framework itself. So your budget allocation and sometimes your reallocation decisions need to follow this same thinking process. It needs to align, whereby you find those initiatives that are the highest value and you invest in those first, incrementally. And as you start to prove your MVP, or you prove success through those measures you've defined, you can continue to invest more. Another case study example, I guess, we did more to give you a better sense of how you can actually achieve this. It's not a complicated framework. It's something that you can get insights from within a 2-hour time box. In this exercise, we brought together Director of Digital Products, a portfolio owner, to evaluate what we knew about their current state of things. During the exercise, we discovered that the goals that they had were falling into the same pitfall we just shared earlier. They wanted to drive 20% market share. It's a business benefit, but it's not an outcome-based goal. It didn't really express how customers would benefit from this investment. We learned 2 lessons from this 2-hour time-boxed exercise. First one was by simply articulating your organizational goals differently. It becomes very clear that the value of each investment was and why it was important to the organization. Through that simple exercise of simply asking, how are you defining your goals? Is it value-driven? Is it outcome-based? The second lesson was kind of interesting, and this is, I guess, where they got the most value. Simply by visualizing all the work they had in progress, all the work that was in flight, they could actually see that the less important initiatives was where all the money was going. Their portfolio management and their investment allocation, their budgeting process that they did at the beginning of the year was not actually aligned to the lean value tree that they actually produced in this 2-hour time box. So the opportunity missed there is great in terms of what you are delivering for your customers isn't actually what you thought. Where your money was being spent wasn't actually where you were going to get the most value. So I'm going to pass it back to Or. After that, a brief theory lesson on what we could have done better to rescue the project that we introduced at the beginning.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Steven. According to this the recent framework that we just present, we just want to tell you again that it's a set of ideas that already have been proved once, that or maybe more, that it worked. But it also have a lot of framework or many ideas that also prove as the same that it works also. So, but actually, everything have the same core, that every time that you release something, it has an outcome. And those outcomes that you just got, please use it, please learn from it. And after that, discuss with everyone in the team that how can we make it better. Because sooner you get it, sooner you learn. Make it as a loop, as an agile that we usually do, that we have to learn, fail fast, learn fast, right? And after that, you can see if many at the first time you might feel like, okay, this is wrong direction that we go. But when we learn, keep learning, keep change, keep improving. And the direction will be try to go to align with the vision goals that we have at the first place. But don't worry, don't worry that the way that, as you can see in the blue one and the red one, is not the right, that is not the right way. It's not the same way, right? Don't worry about the feature inside. Remind yourself every time that you're not going to achieve only feature. You want to achieve the goal. You not prioritize everything by feature, that I want to achieve this, or that. You want to make the company success. You want to company achieve the vision goal that everyone have been told, have been heard in the town hall every day, right? So thank you, everyone. Any questions? We still have some time here, around 5 minutes, I think, and maybe we stand around ThoughtWorks booth. So thank you.
Questions?
Question?
Yes, Stephen. So I have a question. Maybe it wasn't came through very clear, or maybe because I'm standing very close to it. So when I heard the topic, I thought about, so the project is in trouble, right? So you need to rescue it. I think the gaps from my understanding is, yes, the outcome-based sort of guide you through, but how do you make that leap? Like people, everything's burning, right? So to talk about outcome based, maybe
Sure.
we cut the so how do you go to that?
I think what we wanted to highlight was there is a missing link between agile delivery team success and organizational level success. So I think I alluded in my earlier slides that the agile delivery team that you've invested in, which in itself can be successful, is still part of an ecosystem in the organization. So the alignment and the missing link between the vision and the goals of the organization and the delivery teams cannot be missed. Otherwise, you do not have an opportunity to course correct. You don't actually have a clear alignment between what you define as the organizational level goal and what your team delivers on the ground. Based on the activity measures, based on even the business benefits sometimes, they've achieved that level of success, but still there is a gap in terms of the original vision. And in the case study, it was considered a failure because of that misalignment. The framework in which you can claw that back, or you can draw that link between your outcomes as well as what happens on the ground from a delivery perspective, is what we achieved in that 2-hour time box, and what you can also apply in a project that's burning. So the shift in mindset is that when a project is on fire, you're addressing immediate needs. The key to making it more clearly aligned to the organization requires you to take a step back and ask whether or not you actually define the right strategy to begin with. Did you create the right goals? And is the project team that's burning and delivering to velocity, delivering to a timeline, and delivering to scope, is that already on the path to success, but the illusion of success? Because ultimately someone will come along and say you failed. And the reason you failed is because you didn't build in the ability to constantly align your vision with what is happening on the ground, the delivery piece. So you can apply that no matter at what stage of your project it is. But the trigger should not be reactive. It's not because your project is burning that you should be questioning the missing link between your vision and your delivery. It should be something first and foremost in your mind, within your teams, within whatever hierarchy you have within your organization. There needs to be that clear link, and everyone in the team should align to that vision.
Any other questions?
More questions? Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.